we're going to have a discussion on biological point B. So I'll share an image. This image, we get into this very deep in the learning module. The difference between the neurological side and the biological side of point B. So what you're looking at here is point B. This is from October 7th, the optimal physical state of joint function and reactive strength. So the biological side of point B is over here. It's joint function, it's reactive strength. Over here is the neural side, the neural network of absolute strength. You got absolute strength and then speed strength. And so the discussion that I think we're going to have is in regards to programming, but it's in regards to programming. Everybody wants linear based periodization. So as soon as you say, hey, we're going to start to do things concurrently, we're going to try to conjugate things, people go, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. Right. It's like, everyone calm down.
I'm
Just
just
take a
having
couple
that
breaths.
discussion this morning
Yeah. Yeah. And
with a
so,
client. Yeah.
okay. When we work with these staffs and stuff, and they're like, well, how are we going to do all this volume? It's so much volume. It's like, okay, take a breath and understand that the clinical space, right? We've had this discussion before, and I think it's going to be a conjugate edge piece that we've discussed. But you know how there's training effects? There's also treatment effects. And even though nowhere in training science they've discussed that, like we know that clinically when we're treating, we're stimulating adaptation,
Sure.
right?
Definitely.
The majority of that adaptation is going to be in joint function and it's going to be in reactive strength.
Yes.
Right. And if you look at historically weight rooms, most of that is neurological in nature.
Definitely.
Right. So it kind of shows that these two, the performance staff, they have to work in conjugation with each other, right? The clinical has to be doing a lot of the point B stuff on the biological side. Weight room needs to do some biological point B stuff, but they're probably more managing neural network. Hey, do we need to scale this thing up? Do we need to get more compression? Do we need to get more speed? Like they're asking all these questions, right? And so from a programming perspective, I think the conversation that we want to have is simply about how clinical can do a lot of the biological stuff,
Hmm.
right? Weight room can also do biological stuff, but
Hmm.
but if you think about it, like if you have an athlete, think about like NFL, NHL, you got athletes walking into the clinic, you should be thinking, hey, are you doing joint function? Are you doing reactive strength? Are you conjugating the two? And it should be a yes.
Correct. Yeah. I think that, yeah, obviously I agree wholeheartedly. I think that that comes from intent, right? We talk a lot about intent with respect to training and, you know, what is your goal with this particular exercise? What is your goal with this particular movement? What is your goal with this particular, amount of load that you might have? I think that that intent should carry over into the clinic as well. And what I mean by that is I think a lot of practitioners, just in different environments, whether this is in, private practice or, sole practitioner or working on a performance team or uh, any scenario therein, the intent is often just, hey, I need to make this client or athlete feel better, or I need to get them out of pain and or discomfort. And so reframing the intent into something that would be biological in nature kind of accommodates or takes into consideration all those other things that you would want to be doing as a practitioner anyway. Do you understand what I mean? Like if your intent is just to make the client or athlete feel better, then you're not really thinking ecologically in terms of where am I going to where can I fit this session? Is this session going to be like biological in nature? Is it going to be neurological in nature? So therefore you're kind of going with this sort of undefined rationale of why you would be engaging with that particular client, right?
Hmm.
Whereby, if you really think about it, to your point, if you think about it in terms of, well, on the biological side of things, there are these components which are joint function and reactive strength, and under each one of those things, there's a variety of different inputs that sort of cultivate that specific behavior. If you think about your intent as being in one of those things, I think it redefines the
Mm.
interaction with the client or the athlete from the outset, right? And so, in doing so and reframing it that way, you kind of take care of the oh well this hurts or this doesn't feel good or your job is to try to make the client or athlete feel better. Do you know what I'm saying?
I
And so I
do.
think if we can the first step in doing in understanding that the treatment side of things can be very specific to the biological qualities of point B. I think reframing it as being such is the first step to understanding how you would ultimately do all those things, right?
Yeah.
And so once you kind of reframe it, then you can kind of see that both of those um, behaviors on the biological side do go together, right? They kind of have to be worked synchronously. They they have to be considered synchronously. Working on joint function ultimately helps the athlete improve their reactive strength qualities. Working on reactive strength ultimately helps movement into particular zones, which is defined by joint function. So again, like once you kind of reframe it initially, then I think it becomes easier to think of the treatment side as being a big part of the biological side of performance.
Yeah, exactly. I like how you articulated that, where you said you're reframing the clinical space to be very specific to biological point B, which constrains the programmer's intent, right? So, so like this is one of the things we're kind of in a new paradigm, right? Where like the reason why we keep repeating programming is because programming is what's going to unite everybody. Everybody unites under a programming umbrella. So whether you're a strength coach, therapist, etc., like everyone is programming work. Anytime work gets written down that you're doing, that's programming, right? You
Sure.
can do that. In the clinical space, we don't get to do that. When somebody comes in, we don't have like a pre-written thing. We have to be able to program in real time. That's why point A is so important because we're trying to say like, hey, where is their point A and how do I get them to point B? And that's what constrains the programming.
Right.
um, and so what you're talking about, I love, is constraining the intent to be like, hey, just think about, reactive strength. Just think about and joint function. And the reason why that's so interesting is because like when I was listening to you talk, they're intercoupled. Like if you like think about it, like the individual that I just treated, right? We're treating for joint function, right? So we're doing essentially like pails at length, trying to get more external rotation,
Hmm.
right? But then at some point, like the nervous system stagnates, and it's
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
it's not going to get me anymore. And then I'm
Hmm.
at the biological end range, so now I'm doing reactive strength stuff in there, some of the
Yeah.
holding stuff that we've been discussing, that we'll eventually come out with. But it's kind of like, hey, hold into that tissue that you were doing the pails in, and let me try to get more rotation into this. Well, that's going to start to when it's a holding intent like that, you're starting to think, oh, this is much more tissue based reactive strength.
Right.